Gestures! Something I don't know anything about. Gestures are woven into the fabric of our daily lives. You may wave, point, beckon, or use your hands while arguing or speaking animatedly. Or speaking at all. Hi, I'm Kate, and welcome to Always Tuck and Roll. We discuss life, the universe, autism, and pretty much anything else, because not actually sure that there's anything that falls out of those categories. Can you think of anything? I'll wait. I don't know if that's enough time, but if you come up with anything that does not fall into them categories, please put that in the comments, because I am curious, because it feels really encompassing now that I really think about it. Here we are. Anyway. It should probably just be called anyway. I feel like I say that a lot. I edit the word out even more than you hear it, I promise. But anyway, I thought today would be interesting to talk about nonverbal communication. I've been thinking about the last year where I've been just taking care of myself and have had less direct social interaction than I typically have had throughout various other phases of my life. And I thought it might be really interesting to really look at nonverbal communication, because it is a place that I struggle greatly. And I did a lot of research and reading and read a lot of articles, and the one I want to use I like, and I'm going to preface and say I do like it, or I wouldn't be using it. I think it's very encompassing, except for it overlooks neurodivergence entirely. So I will be arguing with it a lot. I just want to put that out there. It's from helpguide.org. It's entitled Body Language and Nonverbal Communication, Communicating Without Words. It's by Dr. Gene Siegel, Melinda Smith, Lawrence Robinson, and Greg Boos. And I'm sorry if I have murdered your names in any way, shape, or form. So what is body language? Body language is the use of physical behavior, expressions, and mannerisms to communicate non-verbally, often done instinctively rather than consciously. Whether you're aware of it or not, when you interact with others, you're continuously giving and receiving wordless signals. All of your nonverbal behaviors, the gestures you make, your posture, your tone of voice, and how much eye contact you make send strong messages. And that's so true. And what I like about this article, and why I'm using this article and not an article written from the perspective of neurodivergence, is because it helps illustrate the communication struggles that the neurodivergent, specifically the autistic community, goes through communicating with everyone, especially the neurotypical communities. And I liked it as a good reminder, but again, I'm gonna argue with it a little bit, because it totally doesn't even acknowledge the concept of neurodivergence in here, and how that might affect how a person speaks or moves or acts or interprets. So, the importance of body language. Your nonverbal communication cues, the way you listen, look, move, and react, tell the person you're communicating with whether or not you care, if you're being truthful, and how well you're listening. When your nonverbal signals match up the words you're saying, they increase trust, clarity, and rapport. When they don't, they can create tension, mistrust, and confusion. And that right there really illustrates why a lot of the times you'll find, especially if you start looking at the various autistic subreddits, people so frustrated and disheartened because they're tired of being accused of lying, of being misunderstood, and it always feeling like they're being willfully misunderstood, like it's intentional. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't, though, and it's really frustrating. And the most frustrating thing of it all is it's not even just like the neurodivergent versus the neurotypical camps not being able to communicate. Within those own groups, they can't communicate with each other. It turns out we're all different and we're all weird and we're all going to react a lot differently than, you might think someone should or would. Body language can play 5 roles. So, repetition. It repeats and often strengthens the message you're making verbally. Contradiction. It can contradict the message you're trying to convey, thus indicating to your listener that you may not be telling the truth. And I can, just reading that, I can feel my insides just getting so mad and ready to defend myself and start really, really trying to prove a point, even though I'm just reading. Like, that's how much emotional baggage, how exhausting it has been for the last almost 40 years of having to constantly try to get people to understand me and not read into me beyond what my actual words are, because that's the only intentional part of me, or what I'm saying. And even then, this thing goes off the reservation. I don't know what's going to say. I don't even know how this is going to go, and this is like take 45. I'm not kidding, by the way. It is tape 45. I have not had lunch. I need to eat before my blood sugar crashes, and I just really want to finish this. So, the third thing they've got on this list, substitution. It can substitute for a verbal message. For example, your facial expression often conveys a far more vivid message than words ever can. Please do not read into my facial expressions. They rarely ever convey the same meaning that I intend to convey. It's not me being dishonest, it's me having issues dealing with communicating. Just saying. Complimenting. It may add or complement your verbal message. As a boss, if you pat an employee on the back in addition to giving praise, it can increase the impact of your message. No, touch anyone. Who are you? Why are we touching people? Don't do it. And unless you are 100% sure that person wants to be touched, do not touch them. I don't care what your relationship is. Don't touch them. And you know what? A boss should probably never be touching their employees regardless. Unless you're in a very tactile profession that, needs to happen. I used to work as a high ropes adventure guide, which, yes, was a wonderful job for someone who's 4'11" and a half. And, in that job, we would practice high ropes rescues. So we're talking 60 feet in the air, dangling by harnesses. And you ended up with your legs wrapped around pretty much every single coworker by the end of the summer, at least once, and vice versa, because you have to practice rescuing and practice getting saved. It's important. And outside of that world or worlds like that, don't be touching your employees, man, unless that's a thing that they're been please hug me, please touch. If that's what they want. I don't really care what consenting adults do, but I am wildly uncomfortable by the patting an employee on the back notion. I've never had an office job where I would feel comfortable being touched like that in any way, shape, or form. The last, there's a fifth point of this little section, right? The last one of these is accenting. It may accent or underline a verbal message. Pounding the table, for example, can underline the importance of your message. It's like when you put clap emojis between each word in a text, don't do that! Or just clapping in between each word for emphasis. And I do that sometimes, and then I'll get annoyed by the clapping because it's loud. And loud noises are not my jam. I do like fireworks, though. We're not going to tangent on that right now. We're just going to keep going. So, the types of body language and nonverbal communication. Facial expressions. The human face is extremely expressive, able to convey countless emotions without saying a word. And unlike some forms of nonverbal communication, facial expressions are universal. The facial expressions for happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust are the same across cultures. I would disagree wholeheartedly. And not just because, like, people from the United States smile way more than a lot of other cultures, especially European cultures, and a lot of Asian cultures too. Actually, and I'm getting this a lot of like AI studied anthropology like 18 years ago, but also like you read a lot of international posts on Reddit, and people just don't understand why Americans are the way they are. And then you watch a lot of like European YouTubers react to American things, and they're all freaked out by the smiling and stuff. So I'm just saying that like I don't actually think this is as universal as you want it to be. But that's neither here nor there, and we'll find out. Body movement and posture. Consider how your perceptions of people are affected by the way they sit, walk, stand, or hold their head. The way you move and carry yourself communicates a wealth of information to the world. This type of nonverbal communication includes your posture, bearing, stance, and the subtle movements you make. Look, my posture sucks most of the time. I think it only was ever good when I was a high ropes adventure guide or ski instructor, and I honestly think that's just because, like, the sports bra I wore, like, really, it's very sportive. It really just, like, helps me, like, yes! Chest out, shoulders back. Little tiny shoulder. It actually makes me feel like I have shoulders, which is saying something, as these things don't hold up much, which is sad for them because they have so much to hold up. We're just gonna leave that trail of thought and move on. Gestures. Something I don't know anything about. Gestures are woven into the fabric of our daily lives. You may wave, point, beckon, or use your hands while arguing or speaking animatedly, or speaking at all, and often expressing yourself with gestures without thinking. This is me. And actually, if you grab my hand while I'm talking to you, I will end up not talking because you've distracted me. I'm distracting myself. However, the meaning of some gestures can be very different across cultures. While the OK symbol made with the hand may, for example, usually conveys a positive message in English-speaking countries, it is considered offensive in countries such as Germany, Russia, I'm so sorry. Germany, Russia, Brazil. So it's important to be careful of how you use the gestures to avoid misinterpretation, hitting your microphone, or offending people. And the thing is like the OK symbol, like, you gotta be careful with that now because the white power movement tried to co-opt it, which I think is bull, but they did, and I refuse to kowtow to that nonsense. Also, like, what we consider offensive, like, as far as, like, in the United States, we would be, like, giving someone the middle finger, or flipping the bird, and if you know the origin of that phrase, please put it below, because I would love to know. I should probably just look it up, but I am curious. But, like, the middle finger isn't offensive in other countries. They have their own gestures, so definitely if you're going to go to other cultures, look up what their derogatory hand movements are. And honestly, I've been trying to move away from middle fingers because they don't really mean anything. I mean, flipping people off since I had fingers. It doesn't matter. See it from someone else, I'm like, ooh, I've made you mad. What else? You want to really make someone frustrated? Thumbs down. People don't like that. It's like being told that Mr. Rogers would be ashamed of you. And yeah, there's plenty of people out there that Mr. Rogers would be ashamed of. Bet you can name some. I know I can. Let's move on before I get myself in trouble. Eye contact. I hate eye contact. I want to skip this one. Since the visual sense is dominant for most people, eye contact is an especially important type of nonverbal communication. The way you look at someone can communicate many things, including interest, affection, hostility, or attraction. Eye contact is also important in maintaining the flow of conversation for gauging the other person's interest and response. No, it is not. I mean, it is, but it also really isn't. I will look this way. I will look this way. I will look this way, this way, this way. I will not necessarily look at you when I talk at you. And yes, I say talk at you. I don't always look to see if you're paying attention because I'm not looking at you. Actually, Pete will respond to me and I'll think that he's listening to me and he's not. But it's the ADHD versus the ADHD because autism and ADHD, and he's just ADHD, so it can be really funny, our communication styles. It works though. We have great communication and we listen to each other's words and parse to make sure that we understand each other's words because we know that tone and facial expression mean bubkiss to us. So we're just going to move on. Touch. And I've discussed touch a little bit already, but let's see what else I got to say. Touch. We communicate a great deal through touch. Think about the very different messages given by a weak handshake, a warm bear hug, a patronizing pat on the head, or a controlling grip on the arm, for example. Why are we giving people patronizing pats on the head or gripping their arm? Don't touch people. Unless it's something that, like, it's a thing, a family member, a friend. Don't touch. Who are you? No. I don't really know how to articulate. All of this weird touching makes me very uncomfortable. Obviously. I have baggage. Anyway, space. Have you ever felt uncomfortable during a conversation because the other person was standing too close and invading your space? Yes, I have. I'm also guilty of that, so I am very sorry to all of you that I have done that to, because I know it's a thing. We all have a need for physical space, although the need differs depending on the culture, situation, and closeness of the relationship. You can use physical space to communicate many different nonverbal messages, including signals of intimacy and affection, aggression, or dominance. Yeah. Stay out of my purple bubble. It's an invisible purple bubble, but just stay out of it, please. Unless, you're allowed in and you know who you are. And even then, knock first. Voice. It is not just what you say, it's how you say it. When you speak, other people read your voice in addition to listening to your words. Things they pay attention to include timing and pace, how loud you speak, your tone and inflection, and sounds that convey understanding, such as ah or mm-hmm. Think about how your tone of voice can indicate sarcasm, anger, affection, or confidence. What if you can't modulate your voice to do the thing you want it to do? Because I think that my sarcasm is frequently missed because I don't sound sarcastic and I don't look sarcastic. And I don't know what that's supposed to mean or look like. I know I miss other people because, like, other people's deadpan I will take so seriously, and then I will do it and get annoyed when people don't get mine, and I don't know that I'm as bad a communicator as I feel like, but usually I feel like I'm a terrible communicator, and the neurotypical population around me always makes it my fault. Like, I'm always the problem in the communication, when I don't think that that's actually true. I think that most people are bad communicators. How to improve nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is a rapidly flowing back and forth process that requires your full focus on the moment-to-moment experience. If you're planning on what you're going to say next, checking your phone, or thinking about something else, you're almost certain to miss nonverbal cues and not fully understand the subtleties of what's being communicated. Yes, I do agree with that. I will actually say the whole if you're planning on what you're going to say next thing, like, I script conversations and then get frustrated when they don't follow, like, the script, even though I know that no one would ever follow the script that's only in my head that I didn't tell them about, that I would never expect to have actually happen. But, it's the difference between expecting something and the way things actually happen and mitigating your own disappointment. But a lot of us script conversations. Most shower thoughts are just scripting conversations with other people. But yeah, being fully present in a conversation is important. But also, remember, we're all human. So they do provide a few tips here. So tip number 1, learn to manage stress in the moment. Stress compromises your ability to communicate. When you're stressed out, you're more likely to misread other people, send confusing or off-putting nonverbal signals, and lapse into unhealthy knee-jerk patterns of behavior. Sorry. And remember, emotions are contagious. If you're upset, it's very likely to make others upset, thus making a bad situation worse. Now, I'm going to pull this apart for a sec. Shocker, right? They're absolutely right. Stress does affect your ability to communicate. I know that when Pete and I were traveling last, it was 3 a.m. We'd been up for 25 hours. We'd been traveling for 12. We'd had a really long delay. We were lost in a casino. We'd gotten multiple directions while we were in there, so trying to follow everything all at once. And like literally we're like not yelling at each other, but shouting over the noise and chaos that is a casino. And then apologizing for tone in the same breath because like there was some toot in the tone, and we knew that, and we just apologized, accepted, and moved on because we knew it wasn't personal. It was just we were both under a catastrophic amount of stress. I will say though that this whole if you're upset, it's very unlikely to make others upset. That is true, but also get over yourself. Not you as the upset person, but you as the person who is being upset because the person you are talking to is upset. Manage your own emotions. Don't hold everyone accountable. If someone is upset and they need to talk, let them be upset and talk, okay? I don't know if I'm misunderstanding the end part of that paragraph, but that did light a fire in me a little bit, and I'm gonna have to process that later. Moving on, tip number 2. Develop your emotional awareness. This is actually really, really important, and we all need to do this. In order to send accurate nonverbal cues, you need to be aware of your emotions and how they influence you. Novel, right? You also need to be aware and able to recognize the emotions of others and the true feelings behind the cues they are sending. That is where emotional awareness comes in. And here's the thing, most people are not emotionally aware at all. If they were, autistics would not struggle as much in society as they do. I swear. This is where the failing of communication truly is, the lack of emotional awareness. And also the complete lack of empathy in the neurotypical community. But that's different, and we're just going to move on. Being emotionally aware enables you to accurately read other people, probably kind of, including the emotions they're feeling and the unspoken messages they're sending. Create the trust in relationships by sending nonverbal signals that match up with your words, and respond in ways that show others you understand and care. Yeah, it's like you gotta do a little bit of work in a conversation to make it go well on both sides. You have to both listen, both internalize, think about, and respond. And then don't read too much into how the other person is feeling or thinking. As if they're having an off day, like I'm having an off day, like twitchy, just can't stay still, like can't focus, just crazy. Guess what? We're human. Maybe just pay attention to the words they're saying alone. I know that, like, generally, I say what I mean. I always say what I mean. Do not read into it because you think my tone or face are different than what I'm saying, and that I'm lying to you or saying the opposite. What I say is what I mean. Tip number 3 here, before I soapbox myself and rant more, is better read body language. Which I hate the phrasing of, but we're just going to go with it. It's not my article. I don't have a PhD. Once you've developed your abilities to manage stress and recognize emotions, you'll start to become better at reading the nonverbal signals sent to you by others. It's also important to pay attention to inconsistencies. Nonverbal communication should reinforce what's being said. If the person's saying one thing, but their body language is conveying something else, like, what else is going on there? Look at nonverbal communication signals as a group. Don't read too much into a single gesture or nonverbal cue. Consider all of the nonverbal signals you're receiving, from eye contact to tone of voice, and body language. Taken together, their nonverbal cues consistent or inconsistent with what their words are saying? And is the person autistic? Huge question there. Trust your instincts. Don't dismiss your gut feelings. If you get the sense that someone isn't being honest or that something isn't adding up, you may be picking up on a mismatch between not verbal and nonverbal cues. So there's a lot more going on here, obviously, and we could go on and on. This article actually ends here. They go a little bit more into evaluating body language and signals and stuff, but I think that the biggest takeaway from all of this is that we're human. We all communicate differently. Pay attention to words. Look at the person and a conversation as a whole picture. Don't just pick the individual. And please don't accuse people of lying just because you don't agree with what they're saying and you don't think their face or tone matches. Because guess what? Some of us are autistic and some of us don't know that they're autistic because we're still learning about autism, especially in adults. Because so many adults were missed now that we have a much broader understanding of autism. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Communicate. Practice. Don't judge people just because they sound or look a little differently, though. Listen to their words. And when all else fails, don't forget to just tuck and roll. See where you land. Softens the blow, maybe? Fingers crossed. You've distracted me. I'm distracting myself.